Hello, Facebook world, wizards and muggles. Welcome to another video episode of the Wizard Factory. Tonight we have a really interesting topic that Brian and I have been seeing kind of a lot about this going around the interwebs, and we thought it would be something that we could really, could use some light, to be shed upon, because it seems like a lot of people have some hangups with this particular topic. So the name of tonight's episode is The Dogmatic Belief About Money, Self-Worth, and the Nature of Abundance. So before we delve into that, Brian is going to start us off with a quote.
Yes, and this is, something I came up kind of, in reflecting back on some of my own beliefs I had about money and things like that. And it's the idea that money is a dogmatic belief is the dogmatic belief about money.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's go ahead and start just, delve right into this if you want to lead off with our first talking points.
Okay. Give me just a second, and I'm going to share to my timeline so we can let more people see this. All right, there we go. All right, so first things first, we can start by defining what is money. So ultimately, all money really is it's a medium of exchange. So of course it's a man-made concept, everybody knows that, and people tend to say this like it's necessarily a bad thing. Well, computers are a man-made concept. That doesn't mean they're bad. Cooking, like the list goes on. Yes, it's maybe doesn't exist in nature, but what the natural law that money operates upon very much exists in nature, and we're definitely gonna take a look at that. But yeah, ultimately, all money is a tool, because I think all man-made creations are ultimately just tools. And what is a tool? It's something that we make that allows something to be done. It has a purpose. It makes easier work, basically. Something that serves a purpose. So it's just a way to exchange ultimately what our true currency, which is time, attention, and energy. And everything really has an energetic cost to it, ultimately.
Yeah, I'd like to delve into this here. I think using the runes are always a good tool to reflect back. And the very first rune in the Elder Futhark we can see is Fehu. And this literally means cattle, but this is where we get our word fee. The ancient Germanic people, they used to exchange cattle as currency because when that's your source of food and everything else, that provides everything you need, from food to clothing and everything else like that. And we can still see this play out in indigenous cultures today, even where they use cattle as a means of currency. And then there's been other indigenous cultures that use beads or something. But when you see it play out in a realistic fashion, what really happens is, everybody can have different skills, but that skill may not be required by as many people as you need to actually, get whatever services or materials or other things that you need. So having an agreed medium of exchange to operate with that, you can use as like in between is very helpful in the process. And that's really all money is.
Right. And then we have another rune that we can look at, Brian, if you want to point to Gaybo up there. Gaybo, as you can see, is like, it's an X that's kind of representing like an exchange that's happening. And this is indicative of a natural law that can be observed everywhere in nature. Just look at a flower. for a flower to grow, there are certain requirements. You know, it needs sunlight, water, nutrients. It needs to take those things in order to transform and put something out. This literally is all in nature. We are energetic transformational machines. We take food, you know, we take things, we take information, we take sunlight, we take all these things in, and we output, well, whatever we want. But you know, that's one of the benefits of our conscious mind, is we get to decide how we're going to spend our time and energy. But ultimately, nothing truly is free. Everything is all about this give and take, and it's really important when we are understanding that first of all, there's nothing wrong with the energetic cost, the you know the fee, the fehu, that is required to do things in this life. And then also, we need to not shortchange ourselves, and understand that everything has a cost to it. And you know, we have to basically cover our basic needs in order to go about. And so we need healthy boundaries. You know, can't you know there's plenty of people out there that would totally just take advantage of you if you let them, and ask this of you and ask that of you, and never give you anything in return. And the new agers and the spiritualists would say, oh, you should just give and never expect anything in return, because that would be selfish. Yeah, it would be selfish, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's just some of that shame that comes with that mindset. And that's really what we're getting at here tonight, that we wanted to really focus on and kind of analyze the underlying, core axioms that are driving this sort of mentality. Um, you know,
Uh, I'd like
Brian,
to
yeah, go ahead.
here because I think there's some more we can gain out of this rune here. Um, if you're familiar with the way I teach the runes, we can see the first 8 of the Elder Futhark. Those deal with mastering the physical level, and becoming a member of the tribe. And we can see Fehu mastering the material needs is the very first rune. But I also think it's interesting to note that the rune Gaybo comes right before the rune Wunjo. And Wunjo is the last 8, but it's the joy that you get from becoming a member of the tribe and being a functional member of the tribe. So Gaybo shows that we're learning to not only have an equal exchange of all the previous runes and things that we've mastered before that, but we need to be able to have that healthy equal exchange in order to receive that true joy and become a healthy functioning member of the tribe. Because if you're just expecting everything to be given to you and you're not making an energetic sacrifice to give back, that's obviously going to cause a problem.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I had on that.
Okay. Yeah. Did you want to maybe get into like that third talking point there with the?
Yeah. And I think a very obvious some obvious metaphors we can use to see that how this works is if you want to drive your car somewhere, if your battery is dead, if it doesn't have energy in it, it doesn't go. If you don't have fuel in the tank, your car doesn't go.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at it with our body. If you don't put fuel into your body, it's not going to go. You have to take action and be willing to charge your battery, charge yourself up in order to be able to do things. And it's something that happens, a lot of people will, they'll get angry at teachers for charging money for their personal time. And this is something that I don't think they've understand because they haven't experienced it. But as a teacher, a lot of times, and I've seen this play out in my own experience, I can offer people like a free consultation when it comes, for their like astropsychology. And as you know, I get really into depth with things. I spend a lot of time and a lot of energy getting that whole consultation ready. And a vast portion of the time, I'd say over 75% of the time, I offer something for free like that. And people will say that they want it, and then they'll never actually get back to me. So I'll go and do all the work and get it ready. but then they don't, even come spend the time to learn about themselves. So then that's a bunch of energy I spent trying to help someone, and they don't do that. So that's why as a teacher, it's important to charge, because
Mm-hmm.
people, a student, in an indigenous culture, they used to have to spend, their devote their life, spend all that time, years and years and years learning. Our modern society doesn't set up for that. So having a medium exchange to have a sacrifice to showing that you're willing to commit to something, that then makes it to where you take it more seriously and you actually value it. It's like, if you can remember when maybe you first started driving or something, if you had to like save up and earn money to buy your car, you probably valued it a lot more than if it was given to you or something like that, because you had
Right.
to put that sacrifice, that work into it. And it's
Right.
the same thing with anything in this universe that you're operating with. You're going to get out of it what you're willing to put into it.
And that's why they call that concept buying in. So, I don't buy it, or I'm not, bought into a particular thing, meaning you're choosing to believe in it. And when you pay for something, you're automatically going to be a lot more inclined to be bought in energetically, psychologically to it, because you've actually sacrificed something of yours in order to get it. See, that's playing to that natural law that whether you deny it or acknowledge it, it's there and it's always in operation. Um, People tend to, I guarantee you, if I offered, some kind of get rich quick course for only $50, people wouldn't even be that interested in it. But if I offered, the same exact course, but say for like $300, they would automatically assume more value to that, and actually have a desire to know what is contained in there, simply because of what you're charging. So it's right there in the word. What are you charging is creating the energetic charge that you're putting into that psychically. Also, I wanted to add, isn't it interesting that your car requires fuel to do anything, right? But you don't see people calling a car greedy or selfish, or, oh, why can't you just drive me around town and not ask for anything? Gosh, no,
Mm-hmm.
because we understand that's how things work. It's just that for some reason, when we're dealing with people, it's all these little hangups come into play, that aren't there in other ways when we're observing nature and stuff like that. Because I think it comes down to a sort of projection. Your relationship to yourself reflects in your relationship to others, so you're going to project that relation on your general view upon humanity as a whole. Usually people who are very misanthropic, who think that humans are scum and a disease on the planet Earth, they view themselves that way, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
they actually feel that way. So, you know, no one's calling a car greedy, but somehow when you take that same exact concept and apply it to humans, there's all this shame involved.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you want something, and that's essentially coming back to kind of gaslighting. You know, um, think of like a domestic partnership where one person's very, very controlling, and they want to just take and take and take from this other person, and then as soon as the other person asks for anything in return, oh, you're so selfish, how could like, look
Mm-hmm.
at all I do for you. And it's totally this very uneven and unhealthy relationship. And ultimately, I think people have a very unhealthy relationship with the concept of abundance in general. Let's take money out of the equation for a second and just look at the concept. Let's just say, yes, we know the Federal Reserve is evil and it's a Ponzi scheme, that and inflation and all that stuff. Let's just take that aside for just a moment and pretend just money for what it is in theory is, it's what we said. It's in a medium of exchange of energy, um, and it can, in scarcity, can bring a state of poverty. In the opposite is a state of abundance, and you're able to acquire whatever it is that you want in life more easily, right? So
It's a choice multiplier.
yeah, that's a great way to put it. So ultimately, um, if you feel that that somehow being in abundance and having lots of things, material gains, is making you less spiritual, obviously you have this kind of self-worth issue about what it is that you deserve in life. Do you believe that you deserve to have abundance, to have nice things, to have all the, healthy food that you could want? Just because you have abundance doesn't mean you're, stuffing your face full of chili cheese fries and buying, you know, cars and all this kind of like sort of decadent lifestyle, versus think about all the good that can be done with the power of money. Just think about, you know, uh, the infrastructure you could set up that helps communities. You know, you can, buy, like I said, healthy food and supplements to make sure that your body's healthy, workout equipment, books, better equipment to create content and do the great work. All these things that you can apply this money to, that's actually a really positive impact. You're creating real world change. Remember the trivium. Creating change in the world. What we have the ability to put our minds to is what we're going to create. So yes, people can be greedy because they're in a scarcity mindset, and therefore when they have abundance, they're going to be projecting that scarcity mindset, and just, they're going to hoard their wealth because they're afraid to let it go, right? Because they don't believe that it's going to come back to them, and they're going to use it on things that serve them and not other people. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of, throw that out there, that people tend to have a very one-dimensional view on, if you have abundance you must be just hoarding things and in living this lavish, decadent lifestyle, and not doing anything to give back and to help other people, and that's just absolutely not true.
I would like to take the metaphor of the car, a little deeper here. I think that we can look
Okay.
at, if you have a destination you get to, you're not looking at the car like it's evil. You understand that car is a tool. Well, and that's the
Mm,
same thing. Money's a choice plier. It's a tool that's allowing you to get to a destination.
absolutely.
There, you shouldn't be calling the tool evil or something like that, because then you're just, cutting yourself off from the ability to actually get to where you want to go.
Hmm.
But that's a little bit I had on that.
Right. You could look at it kind of like how, gun advocates understand that guns are not inherently good or evil. They just are a tool of great power. And just as money, a gun can be used for great good or great evil. And that's why they call it like your buying power, your spending power. Money is just a medium of ways to get things and to do things to create change. So it's really up to the individual how that's being used, and is not inherently wrong. And that's again why socialism is essentially like the gun control of the of the economic world. Anyone who wants a gun must have, you know, evil intentions and want to, dominate others. Anyone with lots of money must be greedy and want to, keep other people poor and oppressed. It's absolute nonsense. And, and they're using that false premise, taking it again back to the trivium, using that false premise to then justify immoral action, theft, which is not a right that they have to take.
Yep. Yeah, I guess we can move to the next point here, which,
Mhm.
it really goes back to, the principle of mentalism, and how we're seeing and operating with things and looking at a tool. We can either empower ourselves or disempower ourselves. Um, and I think, where some of these limiting belief systems about, being abundant and things, we can actually, you know, trace them back, especially in our Western society, to, you know, monotheism and, you know, the Abrahamic traditions and Christianity. You know, as you know, in Christianity, there's the verse in the Bible that says, you know, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. You
Right.
know, and I think it's very interesting that the church will want you to have enough money to be able to tithe to them, you know, but, you know, don't have enough to be, you know, rich and abundant, because
Right.
it's a lot easier to control you if you don't have that choice multiplier, if you don't have that charge built up. It's a lot easier for people in power to keep you where they want. And getting you to accept a limiting belief that you have yourself, you're just keeping yourself in that box. You're keeping yourself away from the solution and the freedom that you could have if you would just change your state of mind and how you're operating with it.
Absolutely. And again, it comes back to that whole gaslighting thing. A narcissist wants his victim to not have anything of their own, of their own accord. They want you totally dependent on them. So if you want to acquire things if they're on their own without it being you who's bestowing gracefully upon them, then they're going to gaslight you and say you're selfish. That's exactly what we have here. Everything about this system is just narcissism 101, wanting to keep you codependent and disempowered so that you come to them for everything and they have you under their thumb. The more independent you are, the more sovereign you are, the less they can control you. That's why the Wizard Factory is like foundationally all, about re-empowerment and reclaiming your sovereignty, because ultimately that is what this is, especially when you consider that at the deepest level, this is all about spiritual warfare. And how do they do that? Again, by disempowering you, because as a spiritual being, you're more powerful than you even have a clue about. And you can do so much, but they have you believing. I was listening to Larkin Rose's speech about guilt-free freedom or something like that. And he was quoting some of, who was that? Who was that slave? Frederick Douglass? Is that
Frederick
who
Douglass?
it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how basically slaves literally believed that they were slaves to the point that if they considered running away, they believed that it was theft because they were stealing their owner's property. I mean, that is the exact mindset that they have us, stuck in. Whether we realize it or not, it may not be quite that extreme, but it's still very, very much the same kind of idea here. And so, again, the more you can have things of your own and be, have better, like you said, choice multipliers. That is sovereignty, choice. It's all right there. The more choices you have, the more freedom you have, and you want to limit that. So they want you keeping you in poverty, and then to the point where they have you believing that it's bad to get yourself out of that and have more, economic independence, among other things. But for the sake of this talk, that's what we're.
And like I said, it's really just a way of us disempowering, keeping ourselves disempowered, and we're distancing ourselves from the solution. And I think it's kind of interesting. It's maybe we can observe a little bit of victimhood mentality here, or attachment to victimhood mentality, because if you can point at the system and say that, oh, everything's messed up because of this, and I'm poor and I don't have the options to do what I want to do, but I can't use this evil money because the system created it. The Federal Reserve's an evil system, and go on and on. It's a really convenient way to actually put the responsibility outside of yourself, when it's your state of mind and the actions that you're taking or not willing to take that are limiting you to the situation that you have.
Yeah. Sorry. What were you?
I was talking about how that's really us holding on to a victim mentality. If we're looking at it like, oh, this is an evil tool created by the system, we shouldn't touch it because the Federal Reserve is evil, or whatever that is. That's really holding on to a victim mindset because it's putting the responsibility outside of ourselves instead
Mm,
of looking at us and seeing and recognizing that it's our state of mind and it's the actions that we're taking or not taking that are keeping us in the current condition that we have in our lives.
totally. Yeah. It all comes back to responsibility, and we're trying to really communicate and like paint this picture of this whole sovereignty thing. But at the end of the day, if you're not ready to take responsibility, then you're not ready for that, and you can never have your sovereignty back without taking that personal responsibility. So that's why you'll see that's a big theme for us. We talk so much about getting out of the victim mindset, because that is a mindset of total disempowerment and not sovereignty, whatever that word is.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, you have to get out of that mindset first and take your personal responsibility back for the situation that you're in and what you can do to get out of that, in order to get your power back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we could look at it from the perspective of an alchemical or magical perspective. That even if you want to say that money, if you want to for argument's sake, let's operate from the assumption here that money is an evil talisman used to control you, and it's the power system they used to have everybody controlled. Well, if you want to look at it from an alchemical view, it's all about transmutation. So if
Mm.
something already has that much magical charge built up to it, just transmute it, use it, like no,
Exactly.
nobody's stopping you from what, if you want to take that to go organize a conference or to start some charity or to, organize a project, whatever it may be, we totally have the ability and freedom to do that. And it's, understanding that it's already something in the mind that it has a mental, it has a magical charge built up to it already. Like, that's a fact. You don't have to argue with anybody on the sense that, people accept that money has value. So why not use that charge? It's already there. It's kind of like,
Right.
say you have a dead battery or whatever, and then there's some batteries that are full of charge, but you don't like the company that made them, and you're like, no, my car is just going to sit here because I can't use those batteries. They're made by the wrong people.
Right.
You're just
It's
cutting
already
yourself
there.
off of that solution. Yeah,
It's
it's right.
already
Use it.
there.
And I think it goes back to what you call, you termed very well, being an optimistic realist. Do you want to tie that in a little bit here?
Right. Um, so again, this is that concept that we introduced on our last talk. And what this is really getting at is how to have principles and be a good person in a totally unprincipled and moral relativistic world that we live in. It's a seeming paradox, but this concept I feel like is really the best way to kind of reconcile those two very discordian concepts of being an optimistic realist. Ultimately, you're a realist. Truth is the highest pursuit. And that's another theme here. Um, you have to live in the real world. You have to operate in the real world, but you're able to see the good potential, because everything is unmanifested potential, and things could be really better, or they could be even worse at any given time. And so as a magician, as a wizard, we're going through life transmuting shit and always making it better, taking what's there, transmuting it into something better. So again, just like taking that charge that's already there and using it for good. How did the elites feel that we're taking money and putting it into this business that's this like re-empowering people? how do they feel about us using that to, set up other means of people becoming more self-reliant, growing their own food, things like that. We're using their money to free them from their own system.
Mm.
It's all right there. And again, if you have this belief about money, yet you work a normal job and work for those dollars, and then you go spend your money on food and you spend your money on gas and this and that, sorry, but that's extremely hypocritical because you're still playing the game too. And again, on at least a subconscious level, you understand this that we're talking about is this is the world we live in, and it's either this or starve to death or go be an anprim, completely living in the jungle and making skins and all that kind of stuff, like without money at all. Ultimately, you've got to live in the real world, and part of doing the great work is getting your hands a little bit dirty, swimming through the sewage in order to help other people free themselves from the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, one that's, like I said, even, addressing it, looking at energy exchange as kind of, if we're looking at it from the perspective of, even if it is something that's negative or sewage, as you call it. But like I said, even going back to really addressing the fact that it's not that, getting past that belief, and that perspective is really our goal here, that, to work towards. And this, like I said, this was something that I had a really big hang up on, a lot of my life, and I think a lot of it went back to early childhood programming and things like that. And, being told that, you're always going to have to just, go to school and then go to college and work this, find this one career and stick with it. And, that whole kind of, fit into this box thing that society tells you that, it doesn't really give you, there's kind of that general underlying stigma or understanding that becoming like really successful like that is going to be, really hard if you're just kind of an average person, or, coming from, like a lower middle class family or something like that. The way the system is designed, it kind of makes you think that that's going to be very hard to attain. But when you accept that mindset, as a, early in your childhood, I think that really limits, the way you're interacting with money later on. You good to go there?
Yeah, I guess internet kind of cut out there for a second, but looks like we're good.
Okay. Yeah, and do you want to kind of get into how this is a control dialectic and how it can swing back and forth between the different extremes?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a really interesting idea here. So again, for anyone unfamiliar with this concept of dialectics, is basically anyone who wants to manipulate people and mind control people, they're going to essentially utilize their knowledge of natural law, in particular duality, and how there's a sort of a polarity to all things, and they're going to try to push you over to one side or the other. And usually one side is a little bit more towards their agenda, but if they can't get you there, then you're gonna kind of pendulum swing over to the other side. So say feminism, for example. Feminism is their agenda. They're using a masculine and feminine dialectic here. Feminists are highly traumatized people for the most part. I'm talking about neo-feminism, man-hating, emotionally unstable, not people who want equality, but people who are, I think you know who I'm saying. And then there's this energetic reaction of the MGTOW movement that is, kind of the other side of things. If you're not a feminist, you're reactionary to that because that is so out of balance, and people understand that. They respond to energy very well. So in this case, ultimately, yeah, they generally want a society of people stuck in the satanic mindset, which for those unfamiliar, the satanic mindset, first of all, is not what most people think it is at all. And the core tenet is essentially putting yourself above anyone else. Getting yourself ahead and in a position of elevation at the expense of others. Doing whatever it takes, not having any kind of empathy or morality about how you get yourself what you want. So they want people stuck in that satanic mindset. It's very obvious when you turn on the TV, which I don't recommend doing, but if you do, you'll see all these reality TV shows that are all about pitting all these group of people together against each other for some money prize. And literally all it's about is, they're all off camera saying, I don't care what it takes, I'll do whatever it is, because I want that money. And they're always backstabbing each other and stuff. That's programming. They're showing you exactly how they want you to behave, even in the real world. But if they can't get you there, so either they want you obsessed with money, and it's all you can think about, and it's what, the whole, like, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Think about the concept there. That's basically saying, if I'm not getting something out of it, specifically money, then I'm not going to do it. And that is definitely, a very imbalanced on the other side of the spectrum there. But if they can't get you, obsessed with money, they want you to be, shameful about money and having these self-limiting beliefs about your self-worth and what you deserve, if that makes sense. And it's all coming from a place of a wounded sense of self. You're either stuck in such a scarcity mindset that you become obsessed with money because you never want to feel that way, and you're trying to fill that hole within yourself with material gains, or your sense of self is damaged to the point that you don't even believe that you deserve to have nice things or things in general at all, even your basic human needs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very interesting to observe, because it does all go back to that. Whenever someone is wounded, and they have deep trauma and self-hatred and things in the unconscious mind, it makes it very easy to push them to one side of either being totally obsessed with something or totally hating it. And that's a very interesting dialectic to push people in between. And a lot of, when people are stuck in that, they'll jump from that one extreme to the other, but they never consider that there's a place of balance, that you don't have to be totally consumed and upset with it, but and obsessed with it, but you understand what it is and that it's a tool and how to use it, but that you have enough self-worth to also value yourself enough to make sure that you're getting compensated the way you should if you're out there doing things.
Right. Selling yourself short.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right there in the language.
Yeah,
absolutely. And and again, we've been seeing a lot of this stuff lately with the Anarchapulco, and sure, it's quite possible that event kind of leans a little bit overly capitalistic and sort of overinflated prices and stuff like that. But then there's these smaller events that are getting organized, and there's people complaining that they're charging any kind of money to even put, obviously these events take money and time to put together in the first place. So they have to charge something even just to break even, which, and that's fine. But I believe that if somebody has a great idea like that, they deserve to gain from that idea and from their willingness to take action and make that a manifested reality for other people to experience. And bringing people together, getting them off the damn internet and into the real world, interacting with each other, networking. I just came back from Anarchapulco, and I made lots of really awesome connections with people and made more friends. And that was an invaluable experience. And I have zero buyer's remorse about the very high ticket price that I paid to get that. And then these other events are like a fraction of that cost, and there's people that want to complain about that, and they're saying that they're charging money for an event that's totally unnecessary. Like they could just make these videos and put them on the internet for free, and saying that, these events are somehow all about ego, which to me, that just seems like a very obvious projection of their own, again, their ego, their views about abundance, and you know who's to say that there's just the same amount of value in an event like that as watching a video on the internet. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, there's so much more to it. It's so much more richness of the experience, and again, the tribal sense of connection to other people in the real world, looking people in the eyes and shaking their hands and going out to meals together and stuff like that. I mean, it's wonderful. And the freedom community right now is still so small that we are very spread out and scattered across the country. And most of us are privileged enough to know a super lot of other anarchists in the real life, and get to spend time with them in person and stuff like that. So we're all online, in comment threads and arguing and having these absolutely petty little flame wars about what people are eating and what they're charging for events, and just it's just absolute nonsense, man. And until that kind of petty quabbling gets checked, we're never going to make any kind of headway in terms of organizing this voluntary organization that we keep talking about, free of coercion. You've got to be able to put stuff aside. I was talking with my friend Jana earlier about how it's kind of like when you have a job, when you work a job, you don't necessarily have to like the people that you work with. You just have to get along because you have a common goal. You both have certain tasks that you're, you know, delegated, and you have to accomplish those tasks and cooperate in order to get the paycheck that, that's why you're there. You're not there for fun. You're there to make money. And you got to put those little things aside and work towards a common goal. What is our common goal? To end the state. So we've got to put this little shit aside and start figuring out how to cooperate, or we're just going to be stuck here forever. It's just how it is.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting, a very a small segment of way we can see this play out. But and I think this is something in a general subject, and this is the perspective I'd like to address it from is a lot of people, even outside the freedom community and stuff, have this same kind of hang up and ideas that they're holding about their self-worth and their relationship to abundance. So now that we've addressed some of the, maybe the foundational kind of mindsets behind it, and how we can tie it back to self-worth, we can, what do we do once we do change our mindset about abundance, and we decide that we want to call and bring that abundance into our life? And this is something that I find the arts of gnosis extremely useful for, especially Vedic astrological consultations, because you can really start to look at where your different talents lie, how you operate, where maybe some of your hidden talents lie, and certain goals that you have to be able to move towards. And then also like kind of the costume, the way you can present yourself as the way to move towards that. Like one of the things, as I get into is what is known in Vedic astrology as the Aruda Lagna. And this is like the costume that you're supposed to wear that, helps people respond to you in a good way. So being able to look at, your foundational energies and the goals and things that you need to have, and then the way you can go about achieving them, becoming conscious of that is very, very useful. And I think that's something that probably one of the things people value the most when they get the consultations from me is being to figure out, where they really want to go, what their life goals are, what their dharma is, their orlog, and then be able to start aligning themselves with that and then calling, bringing abundance into their life.
How to present yourself and how to interact with the world. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, before I met you and started learning more about astrology, you know, astrology just kind of seemed like this fun thing, you know, it's, you know, kind of basic and just fun and oh, that's interesting. Oh, I am like that. Oh, neat. And then like when you gave me my in-depth reading, it blew my freaking mind because I mean, it's life-changing stuff you know, learning how again, how I should be presenting myself, how I should be interacting with the world. And incidentally, I was very much in alignment with that already, but just having that confirmation that, oh, yeah, and it's true, as soon as I started doing this like that, lo and
Mhm.
behold, I started getting more of a Facebook following and people were responding to me more. I mean, this is not just for fun, like it is for real.
You can go
Uh,
and test it. It's a science. Like it
right.
absolutely
And
is.
until you experience it for yourself, you know, you can't even imagine it. But really, especially if you've never ever had any kind of astrology reading, and I'm not saying, you know, reading up your horoscope. No. I'm talking about a real personalized astrology reading um, for the first time in your life. You know, it will totally open your mind to it. You know, and you
Mhm.
can take that information with you forever. You know, it's
Mhm.
because it's a part of you, and everywhere you go, there you are.
Right. And I think another way that we can use the arts of gnosis here to help call in more abundance into our life is understanding that, you know, we have the three different selves, the three levels of the mind: the conscious mind, the subconscious, and the unconscious. And it's from our subconscious mind that we manifest and create our reality. So if we have blocks and our different, you know, minds aren't in alignment, our different selves aren't in alignment, obviously we're going to have an energetic block outside because it's a reflection, you know, in the macrocosm of our what's going on in our microcosm. And being able to look at your chart and then be able to design rituals specifically based for you on your energetic needs. I can look at your what are known as your devata planets, and these are like the three planets that correlate to the different levels of your mind. And then by doing ritual with them, you can bypass the conscious mind, and you're working with the subconscious and unconscious. And what you'll start to notice is things that were buried will start to rise to the surface, and then that gives you the opportunity to reflect on them and change the way you're energetically operating with those and process them and let them flow like they never got the chance to do in the first place. And we can also do this with the runes. So especially if you're using these two tools in conjunction, I can design extremely in-depth ritual for you that absolutely, when you do it, you'll realize how this works, and you will start to experience things coming up from the unconscious and the subconscious mind. But you know, you need that opportunity to be able to reflect and look at those things and let them go, process them properly. And once you clear all that out, you can start to bring yourself further and further into alignment. You'll start to bring in more and more abundance into your life.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think to kind of tie this all together, what we're really getting at here, the bottom line with all of this is I think it's extremely invaluable both to yourself as an individual and to your ability to cooperate with other people and, you know, to move forward in creating this a freer world that we all say that we want. We're going to have to get rid of these hangups with money. You're going to have to accept um, a higher standard of your worth, what you deserve, and what, you know, how you can bring about more abundance in your own life, because that's just giving you more advantage to create bigger and more significant change in the world. So let's get rid of this, you know, shame-based, religious-based mindset. This dogmatic belief about money somehow makes you less spiritual, and recognize money for what it is. It's an extremely powerful tool for creating change in the world, and it's all up to you how you use it. And you know, uh, essentially, you have to change your mindset first, because again, we're looking at the three layers of the mind. you may say consciously, oh yeah, I want to change my mindset and be more abundant. But if those beliefs are still in your unconscious and subconscious mind, those subconscious and unconscious behaviors are still going to be manifesting scarcity, and from a level that you're not able to see. So you really have to truly transform from a core level who you are, what you deserve out of life. And are you someone who's going to go after what you want? Are you going to be your own slave master, your own gatekeeper, out of shame and guilt of like, oh, if I go for that, I'm greedy and I'm selfish? Nonsense. you know we need to totally undo this blatant mind control that's going on here.
Yeah, it's not selfish, it's self-love.
And it's yes, exactly right, and very big difference. And essentially, you may have made this great stride and seen through the bullshit of the monotheistic religions on a conscious level, but there's a good chance, much like with Brian and I, that there's a lot of residual beliefs that are buried deeper beneath that surface, that you may think you've let go of the belief system itself, but there's certain axioms that are still installed in your operating system and still keeping you in a disempowered and enslaved mindset. That's keeping you from your fullest potential and being the greatest version of yourself, which is what we all want to see for all of you, beautiful people out there. So, let's change our beliefs, go after a higher position in life, and give ourselves more ability to create the change that we all want in the world, and step into our abundance.
Yeah. It's all about becoming empowered, inspired, and encouraged.
Absolutely. Nice little drop of our tagline.
But yeah, I think that's a pretty good little place to, do you want to wrap it up there?
Yeah, man. I feel like that's a good spot to wrap this up. I think we got everything out that we wanted to. So once again, as always, our hearts are full of gratitude and love for all of you for tuning in tonight and watching us and supporting us. Please like the video, comment, get us some engagement so that we can keep it, let more people see this, so that those people can step more into their empowerment and abundance that they all deserve. And again, Brian and I are available to offer those Vedic astrology readings, the rune readings, and adaptive personal consultations, offering solutions to whatever you may be dealing with at the time. So just message us and we can set something up there. And as always, much love to all of you from the Wizard Factory, and we'll see you next week for another episode.